When soldiers came back from the First World War, they were promised homes fit for heroes. So 100 years ago this month, a nationwide network of council houses was announced.
And today we'll look at the impact this revolutionary social housing scheme has had. Our reporter Dan Johnson is in Sheffield this morning for us, which again is another glorious day. Morning.
It is, yes, and these are some of those first homes that were built for those heroes. In fact, some of these here on the Flower Estate date back more than 100 years because Sheffield Council was one of those that pioneered different council house designs. So this was a kind of experiment to find out which one worked. It's called the Flower Estate because of the road names here. This is Foxglove Road, there's Primrose Avenue and Clover Gardens. It does seem like a nice place to live. And even though these houses were built before 1919, it's that act that took effect in that year that really propelled the surge of council housing being made available right across the country. This is the council house Marion and John call home. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
All right.
They've built a life here and a family over more than half a century. Thank you.
There was a back porch here. In this corner used to be the toilet.
Right. These are solid homes with proper facilities that replaced overcrowded Victorian slums.
I thought I'd moved into a palace, you know, and there was a bathroom. I didn't have to have a tin bath in front of fire. I could have a bath.
Well, the children used to call the neighbours their aunties and uncles. It was easy to get to parks, so it was very nice. We loved it.
Sheffield is a typical frontline city.
Homes fit for heroes was the slogan when social housing originally sheltered those returning from the First World War.
The terraces of back-to-back houses are being cleared away to create a completely new landscape.
Vast new neighbourhoods were laid out. Sheffield's Flower Estate, green and leafy, was an early experiment in council house design, largely free of the antisocial behaviour that's dogged some other areas.
It's lovely. I wouldn't live anywhere else. I even joked if I did win lottery that I'd just build an extension on mine.
And lifelong residents still value its safety net.
A lot of people do, you know, consider council houses a good house, a good home to have compared to some of the private landlords. You know, they can't afford to buy an house.
So there's still a need for them?
Definitely.
So who are these estates supposed to be for? Who deserves to live in these homes? Should this be a mixed community made up of people from a variety of backgrounds? Or should council houses be reserved just for the most needy, the most vulnerable, people who can't afford anything else? This is the dilemma that's driven social housing policy in different directions.
Council housing is for anybody. Whether you can, you know, whether you can afford to buy your house. To me, anybody should be able to be entitled to a council house.
Tenants' entitlement to buy their home helped build up long waiting lists for what remains. Councils have struggled to build more, leaving over 1 million people dreaming of the sort of stable home Marion and John have enjoyed for 53 years and counting. Were you never tempted to move away?
No.
No.
People did say to us, you know, when the right to buy comes, well, you've been in it, like, you know, you'll get it for next to no. I said, no. I'm a council tenant. And I'll stay a council
proud
tenant.
of it.
So you're staying?
Oh yes, definitely.
For as long as we can.
As long as we can.
OK, 3 people for us to talk to this morning here on the Flower Estate. Steve Bush grew up not far away on the next estate. Melanie Rees is from the Chartered Institute of Housing. And Kate Faulkner is a property expert who studied this stuff. Steve, first off, what was it like growing up on a council estate? And how did it meet some people's image of what a council estate might be like?
Well, actually, I always tell people I had a wonderful childhood. We were one of the first generations, unlike our previous generation who'd grown up in the Victorian and Georgian housing projects in the shadow of the steelworks. We were growing up in houses where we had a garden front and back, where we had indoor plumbing, we had indoor bathrooms, indoor toilets, which had been unheard of before that
Stuff
point.
That really made a difference.
Yeah, and for my parents moving out of the area of the steelworks and the old old estates and into the new estate, they described it as a paradise. And my big memory of growing up as young as 8 or 9 year old was a profound sense of freedom. In the long school holidays, I would meet with my friends at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go out into the fields, into the woods, and we'd make kites, and we'd make throwing arrows, and we'd ride bicycles, and we had a wonderful time growing up, and I've got nothing but the fondest memories of it. And as I say, the freedom is the one thing I remember most of all.
Talk to us a bit about the waiting list, Melanie, because there are lots of people who want a council house and can't get one at the minute.
Absolutely.
More than 1 million names, I think, across England.
That's right.
How do we get to that?
A combination of factors, I think. Not building enough of the most affordable homes, selling off those that we had, 1.9 million since the Right to Buy came in. We need to bear in mind that 1.1 million figure is probably underreported as well, because many people aren't allowed on housing waiting lists, and that's why we're calling on government to really invest in the most affordable homes. We need about 90,000 of those a year to be built, and we're calling on government in the comprehensive spending review to put some serious funding into that.
The government says the funding has increased in recent years and they are building more homes across the country. Do you see the signs of that? Are things improving?
Slightly, but we need to do more. In the last year of figures, just about 6,000 homes were at the lowest social rents, which is minuscule when you think about the actual need. And affordable housing, including council housing, just gets 21% of the government's 51 billion budget. So we need a fairer slice of the cake.
And council houses have been sold off and still are, Kate. How much of an issue is that?
Well, I think it's a big issue. It wouldn't be a problem if they did with the money what they were supposed to do, which is build more council houses of what people need in the areas they need, but that hasn't happened.
Why not?
So, to be honest, I don't understand why the policy has failed as badly as it has, and then why you would continue with such a failed policy. And I think one of the issues is we still see investment in housing as a bad thing, and building more homes isn't quite the celebration it should be. So from a council house perspective, I see that as a massive investment that we will get our money back several times over, not a cost, because as soon as you can put a decent roof over somebody's head, you reduce all of the costs potentially of them being ill, so you reduce medical costs, the NHS bill goes down, as well as when you are building those homes, it adds tremendous amounts into our economy, and we have a growing population, so we have to build at all levels. And what we've been quite good at doing is building at levels that people can afford who've got the money, but we've been really rubbish. Our heroes are nurses, teachers, policemen, and we really, really need to be building for them today.
OK, thank you very much. All good to talk to you. We've got to leave it there because we're out of time. It's been an interesting morning here on the Flower Estate. Good to hear people's experience of growing up on council estates, and people hopeful that there'll be another 100 years of social housing provision to look forward to.
OK, Dan, thank you very much.